Welcome to the Top Order podcast. It is the OGs back in town for tonight's episode. The Rack and Opinion and me here in the UK. We're going to talk a New Zealand and Zimbabwe test series. The views of the New Zealand boys, particularly pertinent tonight. We'll have a few final thoughts on that brilliant England versus India series with Raj and Baldy ready to chime in about the spirit of cricket. We'll also talk LA Olympics, the qualifying situation. And we'll also have a quick chat about the 100. Is it interesting to folks outside the UK or indeed in the UK? All coming up on the Top Order podcast. Stay tuned. Well, awesome to have Raj back. That's the first time that button's worked seamlessly for many weeks. But boys, yes, the cricket doesn't stop. Even through the quieter months from a Southern Hemisphere perspective, some Test cricket going on or has been going on in Bulawayo, and that's where I think we'll start. Got to admit, from a neutral-ish point of view, I didn't see much of the first game at all. I don't think it was on TV, but maybe it was, and I just completely missed it. But they have shown the second test on TNT Sports, which is like our sort of secondary sports network over here. But yeah, other than a bit of batting practice for the Black Caps, what do you make of the series, and what have you really learned about, I guess, this Black Caps side?
What have we learned? I mean, I think just in general, my general comment is that New Zealand kind of went over in this series. They had the T20s beforehand, this T20 series against South Africa and Zimbabwe. They ended up playing 5 T20s and then 2 tests. They've won all 7 of them. Like, they have done their job to the absolute maximum. Basically, if you're going from the first test to the second test, the coaching staff said, bowlers did an excellent job. Batters, we want you to push on and go big in the next test. And they did exactly that. 3 of them got 150. Like, we have ticked all of the boxes that I think you probably wanted to out of this series. We might, in a second, kind of talk about whether the people that went over there might have been better to get other people over there and get more out of the series in that way. But I think in terms of what we've actually done, it's go over there, job done. Rob Walters' start to his coaching career, 7 out of 7 is pretty good.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It makes me feel a little bit sad that it does feel like a bit of a box-ticking exercise, but that's what it was. We did exactly what we went out there to set out and do. Like you said, I would have loved to see someone like Mohammed Abbas on this tour and seen what he would have done over there. I love to see the introduction of those 3 pace bowlers. It was, they're going into a situation where maybe they haven't bowled that much in that part of the world. The pitch was, I would say, a little bit suited to the bowlers, or definitely to the way that we bowled in the areas that we bowled. And I really loved seeing Zak Foulkes. We've been talking about him on this podcast for a long time now. And for those who don't really know him around the world, he can actually bat as well. So he's taken a 9-foot. It's been good to see him bat, judging by the fact that Duffy scored 36. Foulkes might have scored a double 100 as well. It was good to see those guys introduced to Test cricket. And it does make you start to wonder, what does our bowling lineup look like? You had some questions around.
You did that really nice.
Yeah, the segue through what our bowling lineup actually looks like when fit.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Foulkes there before. I think he's probably the best place to start, because before, the first test we had Henry, O'Rourke, Nathan Smith, and then we actually played 2 spinners, or kind of 2 all-rounders, and Phillips wasn't there, so we played Michael Bracewell, and Santner was there as captain with Tom Latham not being there. So we sort of had that kind of a balance. But I don't know, Zak Foulkes has certainly put himself in. That's going to be a serious question now of, has he done enough? 1 test, Nathan Smith hadn't done a huge amount wrong, but possibly hadn't done a huge amount right. Like, if you're going to be mean, or, if you're going to be harsh, like, he's been okay. But I don't think we've seen from Smith, in terms of what we've got from him, has really been energy. He runs in hard and he puts it in the right places. What we saw from Foulkes is prodigious movement, like genuine, hits the seam and moves it both ways. Particularly, I mean, the way he set up Sean Williams, that first innings, the left-handers, like he couldn't play it. It was really, really brilliant work. And, there's probably people sitting here listening and thinking, okay, this is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's struggled. Zimbabwe's, their scores in this series, 149, 165, 125, and 117. They've been poor with the bat.
No, that's good darts.
Well,
like if they can check out from there, that's a good.
What does that add up to? About 501, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, it's not good. So, but I think what Foulkes has done has really said, he's performed reasonably well in the T20s so far. He's had mixed opportunities, but he said, look, now I'm here and I'm in the mix. And I mean, your question about who the New Zealand best bowling attack is, there's lots of options now. I mean, Henry's locked in. O'Rourke has gone home with a back injury. That always scares me with the fast bowlers. We've seen what's happened to Kyle Jamieson over the past couple of years. Sears, other New Zealand players in recent times. So I hope, they did say, I think Jacob Oram said, very cautious. We've got a big 6 months coming up for Will O'Rourke. We want to be careful with the big fella, or some of his words. So, we hope that it's nothing there. But yeah, you've got Foulkes now in the mix. Duffy, I was delighted to see Duffy get an opportunity. I thought he didn't maybe equip himself quite to the level that he has in the T20s and ODIs in that first innings, but then sort of bounced back after about 2 or 3 overs, started to kind of get in the rhythm and bowl pretty well. And then, yeah, Fisher, there's Jamieson, Sears were unavailable. There's a lot of choices. I mean, I don't know.
It's a shame that New Zealand don't play longer test series, because that's a bowling squad that is perfectly suited to have bowling depth for a 4 or even a 5 test series, because you've got a rotation there of 5 or 6, depending on your personal preference, fast bowlers that could all do a really, really good job behind the one guy that you didn't mention in Matt Henry, who continues to be world class.
Oh, I mean, yeah, do you want me to go on Henry? I mean, Matt Henry, he's so I ran some numbers on him because, yeah, watching him bowl sometimes in this test series, it did feel a bit like he's just too good for these guys. Like, in a way of he's so far above, like they just couldn't play him. Welch in particular, I know he kind of gutted out in that second innings in this test, but it just felt like he just couldn't play Matt Henry. He didn't know what he was doing.
He should have been out first ball in the first innings.
Yes.
Got dropped by Will Young, wasn't it?
Will Young dropped. Yeah. But, Henry, 136 test wickets now at 27. Since the World Test Championship final, which, he didn't play in, he has, over that time, become the leader of our attack. And he's played 18 tests, taken 99 wickets at 20. So,
That's more than 5 wickets a test. That's awesome.
It's fantastic. And yes, he's had a couple of these tests now against Zimbabwe. I think he took 14, 16 wickets or something in these 2 tests. So that obviously helps.
And his numbers actually must be better than that, because he had a hard start to test cricket. A lot of Australia, a lot of India he played against at the beginning. So
yeah. I think if you went back even further, and I mean, even in those 18 tests, then you've still got that series in Pakistan, you remember, where it was they were just roads and just draws. Both of them were draws, weren't they? That series. So yeah, I mean, he's bowling in a way that he just looks so threatening, and he looked even when O'Rourke was there, he looked a class above the rest of our attack. And we've just been talking about how our attacks look really, really good in this series. So, yeah, look, I mean, he's fantastic, and he continues to be impressive.
Can I ask a question? And I'll ask it to Baldy and Binksy here, the Nicholls. There was quite a lot of chatter when New Zealand declared at the start of the day 3. I have a very, very strong opinion on it and what I feel like they should have done. What do you guys make of declaring at that position, 601 for 3 full days of cricket to go?
Binksy, why don't you tick this one first, and then I'll follow you up.
I think it's you were never not going to win the game from the position that you were in, if my maths is correct, about 358 runs before anyway. So, look, I think there wasn't really, it sounds silly, but there wasn't really a lot to gain from continuing to bat on that day, because I think if you go out and you reestablish that partnership between Nicholls and Ravindra, which, they might have kind of gone hell for leather from ball one, but they might have taken 20 minutes to just kind of go, well, what's the roller done to this? Has it changed a little bit this morning? If they'd have then gone on and put on another 100 runs and you'd have got to 700, you wouldn't have really learned a massive amount, and it wouldn't have really made a massive amount of difference. If you'd have gone out and Zimbabwe had taken a couple of wickets, you might have come off feeling slightly flatter than when you went on. You still would have won the game. So yeah, I think sort of it was the right call. The only caveat I'd say is when you kind of look at doing the basic cricketing things right, you'd have given Zimbabwe plenty of notice that they were going to be batting on that morning. Whereas if you'd have pulled out, after even 5 overs, that have had 10 minutes to go and scrabble for their thigh pads and kind of turn around, or if you'd have done it the night before. So I don't really have a massive problem with it, to be honest.
I think if you were going to declare, you should have done it with 40 minutes to go before stumps the night before, right? Like New Zealand already had enough runs. They had enough runs with an hour to go before stumps on day 2. So if you're going to declare at some point because you feel you've got enough runs to win the test match, then really, if you're being ruthless, you should have put Zimbabwe in with 40 minutes to go, and you could have had 2, maybe even 3 wickets by stumps. I mean, we were joking off air that we could have had 10 wickets by stumps.
Could have taken a half hour.
Yeah, it could have taken a half hour, and then you had 3 full days of golf rather than 2.5 days of golf. And I know I'm being flippant there, but if you're going to be ruthless, then that's probably the most ruthless thing you could do. I think declaring overnight is a bit of a kind of bob each way option for New Zealand. It doesn't really tell them anything that they didn't already know. But it also, and I know we're going to talk about milestones a little bit in this podcast. I think we talked about milestones a little bit a couple of weeks ago, but it didn't give Henry Nicholls an opportunity to go get a big double, and it didn't give Rachin another opportunity to get himself another big double. That's the only thing that I would have been thinking about as well. Milestones don't mean a lot to players or as much to players these days, but did Rachin deserve another double ton to add to his already impressive test career? I reckon he did. Did Henry Nicholls, perhaps in his last test match, deserve a double ton to go out on rather than 150 not out? Why not? That would be my line of thinking, because what have we learned here? Is Henry Nicholls in New Zealand's best 11 going forward if everyone's fit? Probably not. So, why not let him go out a winner? Go out with a double ton, And yeah, that would be my view.
I reckon Raj thinks we should have got 1,000.
It's not actually that. It's more, and it's not even the milestone thing either. It's the process. Like Baldy said, I think if we were going to declare, we should have declared with time to bowl the day before, or we should have batted a certain amount of time in this next day. I'm not saying we should have gone out and scored any runs or people should have scored milestones or anything like that. I just feel like in terms of a cricketing process, I feel like we were showing mercy in declaring at that time, rather than starting again, going through the basic processes of facing up at the start of a day 3. You go through and do what you need to do to be a good cricket team. And that sort of leads to the bigger issue that we kind of want to talk about here is the quality of Zimbabwe's cricket is, to an extent, and I'm just a bit harsh, I'm going to say to an extent being swept under the rug here, because the last 2 series in Zimbabwe, there were significant, massive milestones, both in total score or individual score, that were foregone, in which seemed like a mercy play, rather than sort of putting them to the sword. It's been a sustained period of underperformance for Zimbabwe. My biggest issue is, where are the green shoots? Where are the academy players? Where are the under-19 players? Are we seeing this turning around? And if it's not, where do we go with this team?
Oh, I think that's the challenge, is that we didn't really see any green shoots from Zimbabwe in this series, right? We certainly didn't see any with the bat. I mean, I think it's great that they recalled Brendan Taylor after 4 years of being out of the side. For him to come back and have one more test for Zimbabwe is great for him, but it's not pointing to the future for them. And there's nothing really in that batting lineup that tells me that an Andy Flower or a Grant Flower or anyone of that caliber is around the corner or on their way through the system. The bowling attack is okay, it's serviceable, but they're lacking genuine pace. And we saw, particularly when Conway was batting, Conway has looked uncomfortable for a long time against genuine pace, but he looked very, very comfortable against that Zimbabwe attack. And when they were short and wide, he could just pick his spot, and they bowled a lot of short balls outside off stump where he could just pick which ball, in front, behind, through the gully area. He just picked wherever he wanted to hit the ball. And it was a great innings from Devon Conway. I don't dare say that he's back in his prodigious early career form, but it's a step in the right direction for him. Back-to-back sets of runs. I think did he get runs in the white ball stuff? He got our score, did he not?
Some score. Yeah, got our score. Got 80 odd in the first test.
But my point is, I think I don't mind the leggy, Makaseka, I think his name is. I don't mind him.
He actually had Conway on that.
Yeah.
So
got to bowl a couple of very terrible deliveries, but anyone does.
Leggies early in their career and aren't at the top of their game will bowl a shit ball. Everyone's capable of that. And Secunda Raza, had a couple of drag downs and stuff. I don't mind their spin, to be honest, but I just think their pace attack is honest but lacks penetration and lacks genuine pace.
Yeah, look, I mean, Blessing's a handy bowler. I think, Muzara Bunny, we've seen him over the past couple of years. I mean, it's concerning that I think he's up to third or something in the all-time test wicket takers for Zimbabwe with 60, or maybe he's fourth or something. He's not far away. But obviously, I mean, I think we're being critical of Zimbabwe here, but obviously we've got to take into account the fact that they've had a number of years where behind-the-scenes issues were causing a lot of problems to their cricket. I don't think that should be glossed over. But Binksy, I mean, we talked just before the show. We mentioned it briefly. Like, what is this? What is the solution? Because I don't think playing. We all want to grow the game of Test cricket, but I don't think them playing against New Zealand or playing against South Africa be in that way and getting absolutely destroyed. I don't know that is good. It's hard to know.
Yeah, look, there's a massive, massive economic conversation here. So, England played Zimbabwe earlier this year as their sort of tune-up, I guess, for this India series. And this isn't me saying England are great and we're all brilliant people, but we paid for them to come over and play that test series. Zimbabwe could not have afforded, 16, 17 business class fares, a bus driver and the logistics that goes into a one-off test match. So the ECB said, look, we want a warm-up game. We want to continue to grow the game and make it possible for some nations that find it really, really expensive to put on a day's test cricket or play test cricket to do so. So look, I think there's a conversation around how we need to do that is going to need to be driven largely by, I think, the ICC, and then probably from a philanthropic perspective from some of the bigger nations to say, well, we need to, if we want people to play against for the next 20, 25 years, then we're going to need to play against Afghanistan, play against Zimbabwe, play more cricket against Ireland. And then, yes, there also then becomes a conversation around, do we need a second tier? But then when you look at that second tier conversation, I saw a really good interview with the CEO of Ireland Cricket, who was talking about just how much it costs to put on a day's test cricket in Ireland or a test match in Ireland. And it's a staggering amount of money for them to have to, shell out to do that. So when you've then got Ireland versus Zimbabwe, you're not going to get a TV rights deal that's going to pay to put that game on. So that game has then got to be put on somehow as a loss for that home board. So I think there needs to be some significant investment, and not investment just in terms of money, but an investment in terms of a commitment that we want to have 10, 12, whatever it is, teams playing test cricket regularly. And then some money needs to go into that from a central perspective from the ICC. And the final thing I'll just say, I think Baldy alluded to it, Zimbabwe have been out of the test cricket sort of environment for a long, long time. Again, during that England series, they did a lot of sort of pieces on what was going on in Zimbabwe and how they were trying to regrow the game. there are some kind of green shoots if you go, 3-4 years away in terms of development of younger players. But at the moment, they are going to rely on those, the guys that have been playing one-day international cricket. And then they're going to need to rely on the odd person coming back and playing for Zimbabwe, as Gary Ballance did, having played Test cricket, obviously, for England. And then they're going to need to rely on some of those older stages, the likes of your Irvins and your Williams and your Taylor in this Test match, and then to kind of glue that side together. But yeah, there's no easy answer for that over the course of the next 12 to 18 months.
Can I just jump in here before we get off this topic? Because I think there is a pathway, right? And the pathway is through white ball cricket for Zimbabwe to get their players real international experience. So we saw it in 96 or 94 to 96 with Sri Lanka, the development of that side through white ball cricket, won the 96 World Cup and parlayed that into some tremendous Test success, used that funding to then develop their grassroots pathways, which developed Sangakkara, Jayawardena, Muralidharan, Vas, etc., right? So the pathway was there for Sri Lanka in the 90s. In the 2010s, the pathway emerged for Afghanistan to grow their cricket through white ball, and we started to get an emergence of white ball players this time around in the domestic T20 circuit that were able to then parlay that into success as a white ball team. Generally, nationally, they've started to get better and better and better. So there is a pathway for Zimbabwe there if they can get players into the SAT 20, if they can get players into other leagues, because I don't think that they're going to grow their international caliber players playing domestic cricket in Zimbabwe, unfortunately. The money has to come somehow into pathways programs to get the guys who are 3 or 4 years away enough experience, enough quality coaching, enough exposure, so that when they're ready to take that next step into domestic T20 leagues, whether it's in the UAE or whether it's in the Caribbean or wherever, that they're able to put themselves in the shop window. And that hopefully will then grow the game from a 4-day, 5-day perspective, because I don't think it's reasonable to expect Zimbabwe to develop a first-class system that's going to churn out Test quality cricketers. I think they're going to have to do it the kind of wrong way around to a certain extent.
Baldy, I agree with all of that. That the challenge then becomes if they develop several really good white ball players that can then go and play in franchise cricket and earn generational wealth for their family. They're not going to play Test cricket. Yep. They're then going to become these sort of nomad T20 players. So they need to figure out how they then continue to keep those people interested, because yes, it then puts the money back into the pathway. But if you think of it like a water cycle, all it then does is give some guys that are in the pathway the opportunity to become good white ball players, and then they go off. Yeah, so how sustainable that is and how that works, that'd be the big challenge for them as they move forward.
And there are a couple of things that excite me, with Brian Bennett. He scored 100 in that England series that you mentioned there. Binksy hasn't done much since. I like the look of that keeper, Sega, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
He was nuggety in this series as well, and Blessing, as you mentioned. So there are a couple there, but you also can't escape the fact that Brendan Taylor, Sean Williams, Craig Irvine, how much longer are these guys going to be playing? They're ready for the Masters series. And that's a whole heap of experience that they'll lose at that time.
Well, and I think to pick up on what Binksy said about the ICC, I mean, that is the ultimate, in my opinion, that's the ultimate decision here. It's someone at the ICC or the boards that are currently playing Test cricket at the moment, competing for that World Test Championship. There needs to be a decision to say, how many people do we actually want playing Test cricket? And if we genuinely do want more nations playing Test cricket, then we have to find a way to do it. And obviously going over there, doing that kind of stuff is, bringing Zimbabwe to play. That's all very well and good. But I don't know, maybe there's a way to promote it in terms of your A cricket. I mean, New Zealand's got an A tour going over to South Africa shortly. Maybe that's the way to do it. You say, okay, well, we want to develop our younger players. Let's send an A tour to Zimbabwe to play the Zimbabwe frontline 11. Or I don't know. There must be other opportunities. But it's going to come down to people spending money to help Zimbabwe to do that.
Lippy, the elephant in the room here is that there's actually a relatively straightforward scenario. You split the World Test Championship and you have top 6, bottom 6, but you aren't going to see you aren't going to see England, you aren't going to see New Zealand, you aren't going to see Australia. You're not going to see some of those bigger nations go, well, we're always going to consistently finish in the in the top 6 of that. They're not going to want to slide into the bottom 6 of that conversation. That'd fix the prestige of the World Test Championship if you had top 6, bottom 6, and you had a 2-year cycle where. Let's say, for example, it's Australia, India, Pakistan, South Africa, England, New Zealand in that top 6. I think I've just named 6. But if you then had a scenario where they all played each other over a 2-year cycle or 3-year cycle, home and away, and then there's a final, that really puts some prestige on that. But then whoever is in that sort of 7th spot, 8th spot, 9th spot, they're not going to be getting the TV money. So there's ways to fix it, but there isn't an easy way to fix it without significant economic ramifications for somebody or someone somewhere.
But it is a potential opportunity for innovation, though, right? Like, could the second tier of the World Test Championship, if it was funded by the ICC, have mini test tournaments? So 3 teams go to the UAE and play 2 tests between them in the UAE over a period of a month or so in a window. ICC funds that. Maybe those tests are 4 days rather than 5. Maybe they have new ball every 60 overs. There are opportunities for that second tier, if you like, to try stuff out. And it might be successful in Test cricket. It might fix the problem with the Kookaburra and the Duke's ball going soft and useless and a little bit kind of for a period of 40 or 50 overs, and then nothing happens in Test cricket for a while. If there's a new ball every 60 overs and we've tried it for 2 years in the second tier and it works, hey, then that gives us some data that can help us improve the quality of Test cricket overall.
I think we're going to struggle to solve this.
Yes.
Conundrum.
Well, and I think it all comes down to money, doesn't it? Really, it's a great idea, that second tier Test Championship, but Binksy said it before, who pays? If India and Australia and England are in that top tier of the World Test Championship, where's the TV rights deal coming from?
All those fringe teams will lose out on so much funding from not having those teams come.
And you potentially end up in a situation where the top 6 actually just get way better and everyone else loses out. So, yeah. Before we just quickly on New Zealand, before we move on to other topics, I do just want to say, and this may come as a surprise, good on Henry Nicholls, because honestly, everyone said why is he there? What's the point in this? I was saying beforehand, I hope someone like Mark Chapman gets an opportunity. He's off playing the 100, so I don't actually know if he was even available for this tour. In hindsight. Should it have been Reece Mario? Should it have been Mohammed Abbas? All of that kind of stuff. Henry Nicholls got an opportunity, scored a big 150. Good on him. Like a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people criticising and saying, what's the point? He scored a Test 100. Good on you, Henry.
And he's going to be able to tell the grandkids he would have scored 400.
He was on track to beat Vian Mulder.
That's it.
Yep.
Shall we move on?
England, India?
Segue us, Binksy. Segue us.
England, India.
Well, I see. I'd got this brilliant segue when you were talking about the cricket balls. I was going to be able to move into the England-India stuff because we had a lot of problems with the cricket balls in that series. But now, like that, I missed that opportunity. But we can, reinvigorate it now.
Yes,
by saying we were talking about balls about 5 minutes ago. That was a big thing in the England-India series. But Baldy and Raj particularly, we've not sort of been on the pod together over the course of the last couple of episodes to talk that England-India stuff. Certainly a series with Baldy. I think you said a little bit of there was a little bit of shithousery, wasn't there? Is the sort of polite way of putting it? Did you enjoy it? What thoughts have you got of that series? We were talking last week about is this one of the best Test series that folks have seen? There was certainly some hyperbole in the UK. Is this better than the 2005 Ashes? No, it's not. But there were some questions around it. But yeah, your thoughts?
I thought it was a brilliant series. I loved every day of the 25 days of Test cricket. And I think that's like an underrated part of this series is that all tests went 5 days. We had, 4 results and a really, really tough fought draw, which is perfectly okay by my standards. There was a little bit of shithousery. There was a little bit of niggle and a tiny little bit of argy-bargy. But I think generally speaking, the two teams walked the tightrope of spirit of cricket and managed to show passion for Test cricket and respect for the opposition, which I think are really the two things that count for me these days, right? When people talk a lot of cant and a lot of bollocks about spirit of cricket, and Australians and Englanders are probably chief among them, but really this test series was first class because both teams had clearly respect for each other, but they were not going to take a backward step on the field, right? And I just thought that they navigated that fine line. They walked the tightrope magnificently, and it was one of the best test series that I have seen England and India play in my lifetime. I thought it was magnificent. I can't say enough nice things about it.
By the end of the series, they were shaking hands, and like in every game, obviously there was that niggle, but by the end of that series, you could see the respect, as you said before, that they each had for each other. The words that those English guys were saying about Siraj, the competitiveness, and as you said, that it was fantastic.
Yeah, the key for me was that it had people talking about Test cricket who you wouldn't normally talk to Test cricket about, and even sometimes if they got the wrong end of the stick, at least those conversations were open, and we were talking about Test cricket because that's what we want to see more of. So I was very very happy about that. If I were to sort of look at this, like obviously there's implications here for Bazball, for the Ashes. I guess if I looked at it from an Indian perspective, as the dust settles on this tour, we saw a fairly inexperienced Indian team, go to England and walk away with a series victory. And I think that sorry, Binksy?
Did you say moral victory? Because it was 2
No,
each.
the series victory.
It's two.
But didn't they take home the trophy?
No.
I think they retained the trophy.
They retained it because they'd won it.
So they went home with the trophy,
right?
So drawing sometimes. Are you saying it's got an asterisk?
No, I'm asking for you. Are you saying it's got an asterisk?
It's a brand new trophy, the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy. So I don't know how they could have held it previously. It was only made this year.
Oh, okay, I thought I was under the impression they went home with the trophy. But anyway, my point was, drawing sometimes can lead to taking home the trophy. But look, I think at the end of the day, they get a pass. They get a real pass for that. I think if they'll be disappointed they didn't win, because I think they played the better cricket for most of that series. But as Binksy said earlier, that in other podcasts, that England won very, very important moments in that series. But the scary thing for me is that I think that this is probably going to be the weakest Indian side that we will see. Mm-hmm. They had a whole sort of vacuum of experience prior to this series leave. And they've got a really, really young core, probably aside from Bumrah. But, as he gets older, he's got plenty left to give as he evolves as a bowler. But they've got a really, really young core that they can build another generation at the top of world cricket across all formats. So that's quite scary.
I tell you, the thing that stuck out for me, and we touched on it in the last podcast, I think you touched on it, Stu, and I think, Binksy and JB touched on it as well. The emergence of Siraj as a leader, both with the ball and emotionally for that Indian team, is significant for their development as a test lineup. That's not just, the New Zealand mould of, we've got Richard Hadley and then, the rest of the bowlers are kind of a level of class below him. Siraj stepping up in the 2 test matches where Bumrah wasn't playing, leading the team emotionally and with the ball in terms of results, outstanding for India's development as a test cricket team. And he is now the guy. It was Stuart Broad. I think Siraj has really picked up the mantle of the guy that when he's playing against my team, I really, really need to rein in my ability to be triggered by the things that he does, because it's going to wind me up big time. But you can just see the passion for his team and how he wants to deliver. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Like, as long as he's not playing for Australia, or playing against Australia, I should say, he is going to be one of my favourite test cricketers in world cricket, because he just gives 150% for his team. I love him. I think he's box office.
It's going to be interesting to see, actually, and this is the thing about all this stuff, right? I always get to the end of these test series and think, okay, like now going into the next series, how's this going to unfold? But there's always so much time between, most of the time, there's always so much time between the next test series. Because what I want to know now is, when Bumrah is back, how does Shubman Gill use Siraj in a way that uses, can he use him like they use Bumrah sometimes? I just don't, the way that Bumrah is treated in terms of, okay, we need a wicket, we're going straight to Bumrah. We're going, this is how we're going to handle him. And even in the tests that we've seen over this course of the series, Bumrah was treated differently, and some of that's down to trying to manage him and manage his workload and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, yes, it's not Ewing theory. We talked about it a little bit. I'm still convinced that it's not, Bumrah's not there is why they won those 2 tests. But I think that the way that Siraj kind of lifted when he wasn't there, and the way that maybe he was used more as a strike bowler, like we are going to come to you now because we need a wicket, certainly changes how he responds to that. And yeah, I'm sure I think the next test series that they play is in India, so it's going to be a completely different scenario in terms of the makeup of their bowling attack. I don't actually know when they go away again and play another test series away.
So they're playing Asia Cup shortly in September, and then they have a series at home against West Indies, and then they're going to Australia in October for a one-day series. Yeah,
so, whenever their next overseas, outside or sort of centre countries, it's going to be a while away, right? So we don't know. But that would be my big question is Gill now has a lot of decisions around, okay, what do we do with our bowling attack? What do we do with our batting lineup away from home? Because that batting lineup's been fluctuating the whole series as well. But then they go home and they're going to, it's going to be a completely different scenario against the West Indies. I imagine it'll be, we might see the likes. Well, we'll see Washington, we'll see Kuldeep, we'll see Ravindra Jadeja if he wants to keep going for a bit longer. So
you might see Akshar come back in, and that for me is, that for me is one of the. Look, I won't categorise it as a problem, but that's one of the things that I think India need to solve. Is they've unfortunately or fortunately got Ravi Jadeja and Washington Sundar, who could both legitimately probably bat in the top 6, but who are both probably second spinners, aren't they? So they've got to then find a way, I think, of getting, I think Kuldeep into the side more regularly, probably therefore at the expense of a batter, and not have that sort of safety blanket of someone at 7 that could probably bat 5. They're probably going to have someone at 6 who could probably bat 5. The one thing I think I'd say on the weakness or the inexperience of their team, I think we're going to see a lot of that in Test cricket now, because we're just not getting a body of first class work behind players who are now coming into Test match teams. They're coming into Test match teams because they've got a body of work. Yes, they might have played 20 or 30 first class matches in their home country, impressed, and then got a franchise gig. But where they've kind of then really learnt and honed their credentials to play international cricket has often been in the franchise stuff. Jaiswal's a cracking example of that. Someone that, had first class form, but really that translated into then an IPL gig, and then he's the biggest thing since sliced bread. And I think I'm right in saying that even when you look at someone like him, how many Test matches has he played? It'd be interesting to see what people's perception is. People, will go, "Oh, he's really early in his career." He's played 25 Test matches already, so that's a reasonable career for some people. So I think it's kind of that's the way I think we're going to see that evolution now. We are going to see players that we're familiar with, but you can then look at their Test record and go, "Wow, they've got no Test record yet, but they've played 100 franchise games." And they've learned in the cauldron of playing against some of the best international players by virtue of that. But cracking series, and I think it was good for cricket.
Can I just, before we leave the series, one thing that we talked about a lot in between me, Binksy, and Jamie during the series was the England bowling lineup. We sort of know what the batting lineup's going to be. That Bethel's obviously come in and played this game with Stokes out. But I think the makeup of that bowling attack, obviously injury aside, you looking ahead to the Ashes, an Australian point of view, maybe this is a leading question, but does that bowling lineup give you any fear as an Australian?
Oh, if they're fit, it does. Yeah. I mean, their first choice bowling attack, if you look at Archer, Atkinson, and I don't know how Woakes is going to go in Australia. I have genuine concerns about his shoulder for a start. That's not a cheap injury to come back from.
There's Wood, there's Cast.
But they've got a lot of supporting cast. So Stokes is bowling great. I think they need to use him sparingly to give him a bit of longevity. I think what we've seen from the England-India series is if he over bowls himself, he's gonna get hurt. And though those two things aren't directly correlated, but I think they are indirectly correlated. But you've got Cass, you've got Tongue, you've got Mark Wood, you've got, who am I missing? Binksy. Those are really the big ones. Yeah, so Archer and Atkinson, I'm locked in. I think those two are the fulcrums of your attack. And then you've got those other three chiming in Australian conditions. And I think Shoaib Bashir, if Australia don't get on top of him, has the potential to have a reasonable series in Australia because he gets bounce. And Gabba is a bounce wicket. Perth is going to be a bounce wicket. Adelaide, he might struggle because it's flat, and I think if he bowls a 4-ball, Australia will just wait for him and pick him off. Melbourne and Sydney, we don't know what those test surfaces are going to look like because sometimes they take spin, sometimes they're rolled snot, as Binksy would like to say. So the England attack, if they can bring genuine pace and they can bring a battery of bowlers that they can rotate in and out, I think they are going to be dangerous for Australia, particularly if we don't get our top order sorted before they arrive.
Yeah,
very good.
I'd agree. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in more detail. I still can't believe that you have got Brisbane as both the Brisbane Test and the day-night Test. I would ambush every side.
We are going to fully ambush you. I'm talking it up already. I am leaning into the stereotype for the next 4 or 5 months. We are going to provide you with the Illingford third 11 that Richard Hadley's cohort was bowling with, and we're going to put you in Darwin, and then we're going to make you stay at the Crocodile Hotel in Kakadu, and then we're going to ambush you when you get here. So be prepared.
Means you're afraid, Binksy. It means you're afraid.
Yeah, I'm very, very, very afraid.
Shut the fuck up.
One double ambush or 2 single ambushes. Yes. Let's not talk about the military, tactics of whether 2 ambushes better than 1. Anyway, let's segue from ambushes to the Olympics. Look at that. That was seamless.
You're on fire, mate. On fire.
This has kind of come up in the Slack channel over the course of the last few weeks. But we've got cricket, in the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. Sort of sometime on since the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. I think was the last time it was hosted there. Look at that for a bit of knowledge.
In LA, yes.
Yeah. Yes, I know the Olympics is hosted more regularly than that, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. But it looks like it's going to be 6 teams, and then the qualifying situation appears to be essentially a team from each region, test playing region. So we'll have the USA obviously will be in there, but there's even some conjecture about whether that's the case based on some internal wranglings of the United States Cricket or whatever their board is called. But let's assume that the hosts are in the tournament. That leaves 5 spots, and it looks like it's going to be then one from sort of Europe, and that's ostensibly either the Great Britain side or Ireland, which would include Northern Ireland as a little quirk, who would normally obviously be within Great Britain, but they will be aligned to Cricket Ireland. We then have one from Australia or New Zealand, one from South Africa or Zimbabwe, who we've talked about extensively. One from one of the West Indian islands, again, depending on the way their cricket board works. And then only one from India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan, or Bangladesh. So we've got a bunch of questions in there. Do we see this as being best available side for each of those nations? I recall Baldy, I think, a Commonwealth Games where, Australia sent pretty much an A side to a Com Games. But yeah, what do we think about A, this being in the Olympics, and B, how much prestige is going to be put upon it in the World Game?
I still don't understand why it has to be 6 teams. They play these tournaments so quickly. I just don't understand why.
They're talking about double headers. Surely they could get through 10, 12 teams.
Why can't we have 12 teams? This would be a great tournament if there were 12 teams and you had 2 or 3 from Asia, you had Australia and New Zealand, you had 2 teams from Europe. So that means Ireland and the Netherlands and all those teams battle it out to go.
Yeah.
I think that the challenge, the Caribbean teams obviously can't go as the West Indies, which they would normally play in any other World Cup tournament.
Yes, so maybe they have a tournament and the winning island goes.
That makes that challenging. But I can't see there being value in the Olympics if only one team of India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh can go. Like, that seems ludicrous to me. It seems crazy.
Can we come back to this one really quickly? I just want to ask the first question, which Binksy asked. Do we think that anyone in, let's just say there's 6 teams going, is not going to send their best side? I think, I'll answer first. I think that everybody will want to play in the Olympics, especially if there's only 6 teams. You have a genuine chance of getting a medal, if not a gold medal at the Olympics. I think everyone would send their first sides, wouldn't they?
I think so, yeah. I feel like part of the Commonwealth Games stuff maybe was around the fact that it was also T20, and T20 was kind of weird then. Or was it T20 or was it one day?
No, it was 50 overs. It was 50
overs, yeah.
Was
That's
that
right.
the 98 KL Games?
Yeah, that's right,
actually.
Yeah.
So you sent a couple of proper players board in, and there was you had a number of A players in that side, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think we won that medal either. I think we lost the
to
final.
South Africa, I think.
Yeah.
Which, but I would agree with you, Raj, that I mean, New Zealand cricket's been talking about it. They talked about it in Rob Walters' announcement. I think they said, we'll be going through to these events, these ICC events, plus the LA Olympics. So they certainly see it as a marquee opportunity to get New Zealand cricket out there, promote the game, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it sort of just feels weird to present it like this. What a great opportunity for cricket. And then only have 6 teams. I mean, it just seems madness. And then, you're going to end up with a situation where, it's going to be, I mean, if it's based on what, at the moment, it's going to be based on ICC rankings. It sounds like
pretty clear cut.
It's the big 3 are going to be the 2 teams, or the 3 teams, plus South Africa, because, they're, as we just discussed, Zimbabwe is not in a great state at the moment in terms of the rankings. And then you're going to have the USA. I think something I've read, Binksy, is that 5th spot, because the USA can count as the Americas, the 5th or the 6th spot, would be they can have some like one tournament for the rest of the teams and playing off for one spot. But again, that feels pretty rough.
Well, I think so. This is a big bugbear of mine. That's why I wanted to leave it to after that discussion. If there's only 6 teams, there's only one way to make it fair, because you also have to look at men's and women's. And interestingly enough, in the ICC rankings, the top 5 is the same for 2020's men's and women's, and it's the big 3 plus South Africa and New Zealand, and then USA if they're a 6th team. Like that seems the most fair way to do it. I know they want to, cover geographically as much space as they can, but surely you've got to send the best 5 teams plus.
Yeah. Well, and I think for the women's that I saw that they are talking about, the placings will be determined by the T20 World Cup, which is coming up soon.
Yeah. So that
again,
this hasn't come out officially, has it? So yeah, women's tournament qualification, they're thinking will be decided by that 2026 T20 World Cup. But yeah, the kind of way they've positioned the men's piece is the European place would be, so it'd be 12 full member sides, and there'll be playoffs between them. So they're still talking about there being a playoff between Australia and New Zealand, a playoff between Zimbabwe and South Africa, and then short tournaments for Pan America and Asia. So yeah, there still seems to be a little bit. The devil's advocate thing I'd probably throw into it is the purpose of this seems to be to double down on the global game and putting it in a shop window, because probably of the quality of some of the franchise cricket that we've seen around the world. So I guess when you're trying to get those sort of global eyeballs on it, you wouldn't really want Australia versus Namibia, where Australia get 300 and then bowl Namibia out for 23, because that's going to look pretty shit. As a spectacle for
is that a technical term?
Yeah, and then I guess the second piece, and look, this is one that could potentially be solved. The pitches in the US leg of the T20 World Cup in the USA were, and this is the technical term, they were shithouse. So that might be one of the other factors. Is do they have suitable venues in Los Angeles to make sure that the quality of a larger tournament is going to be played on decent wickets? And I heard an interview, I think, with Richard Gould, who's the ECB chairman or CEO, whatever his job title is, and he was talking about the fact that that they're already talking about how they're going to address that is with hybrid pitches, so that they've got pitches that will kind of hold up and provide a bit of better quality. So there's a couple of there's a number of factors in there, right? But yeah, I guess it's also do you really place that much stock on an Olympic medal? It's weird, isn't it, when you have some of these other sports coming in that haven't historically been in there, golf and tennis. Is it the fifth major or is it not really? Yeah, and I think it varies a little bit player by player, doesn't it? I guess in terms of how jingoistic they are.
Yeah,
I think it's a cool experience, isn't it?
Not just because it's in LA, but going to the Olympics is a massive, massive deal, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
And I think without getting too philosophical about whether team sports should be part of the Olympics and should they be part of the Olympics if they're not the pinnacle of your given sport, you could argue that winning the NBA championship is the pinnacle of basketball, winning the Football World Cup is the pinnacle of football, winning the British Open or the US Open or whatever your open flavor is, whichever major you prefer, the Masters, whatever, is the pinnacle of golf, tennis, likewise, all of those kinds of things. But being able to go to the Olympics and potentially coming home, as you say, Raj, with a medal of any color, but a gold medal in particular, is for some people or for a very, very few people, a once in a lifetime achievement.
Oh, yeah.
And my only qualm with this whole exercise is if you've got a football tournament that's run in multiple cities, as it was in Sydney and as it has been in a number of Olympic venues since then, in Australia, the football tournament was run in multiple cities to allow for good pitches to be available for all games. Why couldn't you run a cricket tournament that's got 12 teams up and down the West Coast where you have games in San Francisco, already MLC there,
San Diego.
Games in Seattle, already MLC there. They have a pitch in San Diego. They've got a postage stamp, isn't it?
They've got a zoo.
Yeah, and they've got some naval bases and stuff. So there is opportunity to play a decent tournament now in America on that West Coast and have 12 teams, because rugby sevens has got 12 teams. Why shouldn't cricket have 12 teams as well? But I hope we send our best side.
But there are some teams though that if they are not at the Olympics, does kind of make a mockery of it. Like, you need to have India there, you need to have Australia there, you need to have England there. I'd argue you need to have New Zealand and South Africa there as well, based on how they've played their white ball cricket in the last few years. If they're not there, it doesn't feel like the best of the best.
I completely agree. But imagine how cool it would be for Pakistan, who don't win a lot of Olympic medals, to go and win an Olympic medal. Like, just say maybe they jag bronze in the women's, or even jag silver in the men's. Like, how amazing would that be for Pakistan or for Afghanistan or for Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or any one of these teams to be able to go to that tournament? Like, you can get 12 competitive teams easily from the cricket that we've got. I mean, we're not even talking about the Netherlands or Ireland, who have upset teams. The Netherlands have upset teams at World Cups. Afghanistan have upset teams at World Cups. Yeah, easily get 12 competitive teams.
So what's the call to action? Call to action, we need to write a letter, something?
I'm going to lobby my Olympic minister in Australia and make sure that we get 12 teams.
People write it in the comments. Write in the comments and we'll add it to our letter. We'll add your name. Should there be 12 teams? Yes or no?
Very good. I think we've settled that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Just tag the ICC. Done. And the what is it? The IOC? Is that what
yes.
the Olympic?
The segue you can use here is from 12 teams to 100.
Oui.
Okay, yeah, from 12 teams to 100, which ostensibly is going to be a T20 competition next year, but we can probably talk about that. But yeah, the 100 kicked off this week in the UK. 6 brightly adorned jerseys that look like crisp packets continue for this year. But I think the biggest sort of story off the field really is that pretty much all of the funding arrangements for next year have been confirmed. There's still a couple that I think are waiting on the final contracts. But for example, as an MCC member, I got kind of letter not too long ago saying we've now, the MCC that is, have finalised our agreement with a consortium colloquially known as the Tech Titans that will be taking over the running of the the Lords-based side, which is currently called the London Spirit from October 1st. And that's going to be the same across the others as well. So we've got investment from the Mumbai Indians. We've got investment from the Sunrisers. We've got a lot of investment. That sort of links with other franchised tournaments. And look, the cricket so far has been a little bit mixed. There's been a couple of pretty low scoring games in the men's competition, but pretty much all of them double headers, with the women's game being played prior to the men's game, which I think has been really, really good. We've got real decent overseas players on show. Rashid Khan, Lockie Ferguson. There was a game a couple of nights ago, actually, with Trent Bolt, Tim Southey and Adam Milne all playing. We've got, unfortunately, David Warner, Steve Smith. There's some real big names playing, and also the England players have been made available from the start of the tournament as well, which, particularly given how tiring that test series must have been, I was a little bit surprised by, but we've seen Duckett and Crawley and Jamie Smith amongst others as well. But I'm probably in a little bit of a bubble because it's on my TV every night. It's that real sort of a little bit like the Big Bash, Michael. It's that appointment to view. It's on every night over a short period of time. Plenty of airwaves here. But any interest globally, do we think, in the 100 tournament?
I mean, it's not on. I don't think it's on TV here in New Zealand. We discussed how Sky doesn't seem to have the deal with England cricket anymore, so we were having to find alternative ways to watch that England-India series, which was a shame. Obviously, we talked about a bit on the show, and certainly a lot off the airwaves. But I mean, I have a couple of questions that I would throw straight back at you, and you maybe sort of answered the one about, as we said, it's not on TV here. Like, it does seem like now there is a bit of a window for the 100 in a way that there wasn't before. I don't know if that was intentional or if it's just coincidental this year that we've sort of ended up with not that much. I know there is some international cricket going on. Australia's about to play South Africa in a series in Darwin, but it doesn't seem to be the impactful test series going on at the moment. So it does feel like players are available. New Zealand let their players go and play in the 100 instead of playing in that Zimbabwe test series. So, I mean, is there a buzz genuinely in English cricket around the 100, and is that growing? Because that was what we were told when the 100 first started. It was very much around, we see this. There was a lot of opposition to it at the start, but it was, we see this as our opportunity to grow and really, become the appointment viewing in the way that the Big Bash was. So is that happening? And the other one would be the stuff you talked about with Indian ownership or sort of franchise ownership. Do you see that kind of in the sense of growing the tournament? Is that going to have an impact and in the very near future?
Yeah, so on the first question, I think yes, there is a window created. The tournament's less than a month, right? It's kicked off, I think, on the 5th of August. The final is on the 31st of August. So that they're definitively, they've created that. I think that's come with some conjecture. Typically we'd see Test cricket being played in England during the month of August. But normally the best month for weather in the UK during the course of the year. Also prime school holidays as well. So there's, I guess, two arguments there. Kids can go and watch it, but also, some kids will be away at Centre Parks or in Tenerife or wherever. So, they're not going to be around during that period of time. I think you'll hear a couple of different points of view. County members obviously also upset as well that they don't get to see, their counties in action as much over that period of time, and if they do, they're playing, their B string sides through August. So there's a little bit to unpick there, but there definitely seems to be that window and that appointment to view. Particularly, there's some games on terrestrial TV here as well, so on free to air TV. So the BBC have got not all the games, but they've got games each week. They're covering lots of it on their digital channels and their radio channels as well. So you can get access to highlights really, really easily, and then some games broadcast simultaneously. Actually, really weird. You can kind of switch between Sky and the BBC and get different commentators. On that. So that's interesting. I do think that there seems to be just a little bit of this kind of let's wait and see now with all this investment coming in. So officially, I think that kicks in on the 1st of October. So there's already talk that the names of the franchises might change come October the 1st. So, for example, Mumbai Indians have got a stake, I think, in the Oval Invincibles. So, will they go like they have with, MI Cape Town, etc., and change the name of that franchise, or do they think that the Oval bit is important? I don't know. There's talk of that. And then I think there's also talk of whether or not there'll be pressure put on from probably particularly those Indian investors that have got IPL connections as to whether they will want the tournament to move to a T20 tournament. The main reason for the 100, or one of the stated reasons for the 100, was they wanted a game that could be finished in 3 hours so that it could be put onto free-to-air TV. The minute I think we go to bin T20 with the, see it time as strategic cement timeout, the 5 bananas potassium overload strategic minute or whatever, then, we're straight away back to a 4-hour game, aren't we? So lots and lots of things. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited by it because I think it's creating a good franchise tournament. And I think, will we see 2 or 3 of those larger tournaments, IPL, 100, Big Bash, CPL, like there's a bunch of them to choose from. Will we see 2 or 3 of those emerge as the real pinnacle ones, and some of the others will kind of disappear into the background a little bit? And then we've got, almost all the way out through the year, we're going to have 2 or 3 sort of big marquee franchise tournaments where we're getting to see the best players in the world. And then I think the other thing I'll just add into that as well, with this Indian investment, particularly from the IPL teams, which I know we've seen in other franchise tournaments as well, will we now see Indian players being able to play in overseas franchise tournaments? Because I think that's the one thing that, is definitely missing, isn't it, from all of these tournaments, is that at the moment, the BCCI don't allow their Indian players to play in other franchise tournaments. And surely, if they own all of them, then we can we can actually change that up a little bit. But yeah, I'm excited by it. I really am, and I wasn't a huge fan necessarily initially, but I think they've marketed it pretty well. But it's going to be really, really key to see what they do to refresh that marketing, I think, with the changes of ownership. And then the final thing I'll just say, leave it where it is in terms of the number of teams for now. They've talked about adding a couple of extra teams in. I would say just leave it, learn the lessons that we learned from probably the Big Bash from that perspective, and go from there.
Silence from the side of the room.
Golden.
Marsh has just hit Ngidi over his head for 6, first ball of the match.
I like
South
that.
Africa, India, South Africa, Australia.
He's playing for a spot, Marsh, in that T20 World Cup. I think
He's the captain.
I know, but I think he's genuinely still playing for a spot. We'll cover it another time, but there's so many options at the top of the order for Australia.
That 6 will have helped.
That helps. Yeah.
Might need more than 6. Anyway, we're starting to just chat amongst ourselves, Binksy, so you can round out the show.
Take us away.
Yes. Well, from the 100 to 100 minutes of podcasting nearly this evening, but that is all we've got time for. We'll, of course, be back in the feed probably this time next week, won't we? We'll rustle up some cricket to talk about, I would imagine, between now and next week. But for now, it is good night and God bless from us all here on the Top Order podcast. We'll see you next time. Good night.